So I'll crack on straight on because we've got only 15 minutes. And what I thought I might do is have a look at, here we go, have a look at what I call the wicked problem of designing comfortable and low energy houses in moderate climates like Sydney, right? So I'm going to jump around.
Can I just interrupt for a sec? If you can go down to the bottom of the right-hand side of your screen.
Yep.
Can you see where you've got the little grey icon where the box is? Put your cursor down there towards your clock, and you're going to put it into a different presentation mode.
Right.
Because at the moment we're seeing all of your slides. Go to where
no, that's all right. I want to keep it like that.
Okay.
Because I'm going to jump around between a couple of things.
Oh, okay, great. No problem.
No, that's intentional. Sorry about that.
All right, no problem. We'll leave it with you.
So I thought I'd start by saying that if I looked at the weather for Sydney and I showed you a screenshot from the popular software called Climate Consultant, where we've sort of summarized the Sydney climate, what you can see is that even if you apply the adaptive comfort limits, there's quite a few hours where the temperatures are quite low and quite high. So January and February are summer, October, November, December are warm for us in the Southern Hemisphere. June, July, August is cold. You can see all these averages, but if you start looking at the hourly numbers, you can see that there's quite a distinct cold and hot period. Now, the interesting thing is that if you look at it a little bit in a little bit more detail, where the blue is, the dark blue is, about 63% of the year is actually below 20 degrees, right? And only about 11% of the year is about 24. It says here 24 to 38. And we have one day in this weather file, which is about 40 degrees, which is fairly typical of Sydney, particularly if you're somewhere near the coast. If you're out west somewhere, there's more 40-degree days than one day. But anyway, so and I'm not talking, I guess, about houses that are architecturally designed and whether you have a lot of money to spend. We're talking more about a simple suburban project home done well. You've taken care of doing all the right things. So for example, if you look at this third slide that I've got here, I've just taken two images of the design that we're going to be looking at. And there's the winter sun at 3 o'clock, and you can see that it's actually coming in to the spaces. Here's the summer sun at 3 o'clock, and you can see that the eaves are actually doing their job. So it's a reasonably well-designed home, right? And we've also taken the trouble to ensure that we put in all the right typical materials. Like, for example, we've got ceiling insulation of R5. We've got high performance types of windows, and there's a different performance for the windows on the ground floor and the top floor as is required by analyzing the design. So where are we coming from? So if after having done all these things, if I then look at what's going on across the year, I can see that, and what I've done here is in Sydney, typically we don't do central heating and cooling for the whole house. We cool either the living spaces or the night spaces during the appropriate times. So during the day, we work only on the living zones. During the night, we only do that for the bedroom zones. So you can see here that I've got this summer cooling in blue across the year, and I've got winter heating in red across the year. Now that's a combination of what's happening for both bedrooms and living rooms. If you look at, say, a particular day, and I look at the way it works in summer, you can see that you get this sudden burst of a little bit of extra cooling in the afternoon, and that's because of that particular house and the way it's situated and the windows are working. You can do the same and look at what's happening in winter, and you can see that if you look at it again, it's because of that particular house and the way it's situated and the way we are only looking at heating the bedrooms after evening around 8, 9 p.m. You can see there's a bit of a spike initially and then it sort of settles down, okay? But the interesting thing is to kind of say, well, you have this house which requires cooling during the summer months, you have it requiring some heating during the winter months, right? Now, how does the fabric sort of work? And what we are doing here is, this is the green is really what's happening on the outside. And you can see here, we've got this one day, which is a real freaky day where the temperature has reached much above 40 degrees, about 42 degrees, right? So we are kind of interested in understanding what is happening to different rooms in the house. So let me show you the house that we're looking at. That's what the house is. We've got a ground floor, and on the ground floor, we've got a number of rooms. So the room that I'm going to be looking at is this living zone here, which is kind of facing southeast, and there is one window on the south, right? And then on the top floor, the first floor, we're going to look at this bedroom here. Okay, the bedroom faces north, right? And so we're just going to look at those. I can look at any one of them, but I've just plotted those two for the present. So let me go back to my results folder here. Now, if I look first at the air temperature, now I've set my air conditioning system, which does either heating or cooling. So it's maintaining a temperature range. So if I pull the range in summer, it's sort of maintaining it at just about 22, 23, 24 degrees or so. If I look at it in winter, then it's a bit lower. So it's allowed, and only during those particular times. You can see when the air conditioner comes on and when it cuts off. Then it's maintaining it around 20 degrees or so. But if I look at the radiant temperature in this case, because we've done the right thing, you can see that the difference between the radiant, that's what you feel, and what the air temperature is saying, there is a difference, but it's not that much. That's a good design, right? Now, if I did the same thing, and let me look at it for, say, winter over here, if I look at it just for the bedrooms, you can see here that while the air conditioner is maintaining the temperature when it's required at that 20 degree, at night the temperatures are beginning to fall a little bit below that. Okay, and again, not much, because we've done a really good house. We put double glazing. We've done all the right things to it. Okay. So what's my point? Why am I sort of rabbiting on about this thing? The thing is that if we make this house run on a passive sort of mode without any heating or cooling, what you can see is that it is quite difficult to maintain conditions. The air temperatures get to be pretty low and you still need a bit of heating. So I've kind of looked at a living zone here. And what I find is that in the month of July, across the month, in the daytime when I need it to be comfortable, about half the month can be comfortable without any heating or cooling, but I need heating for about half of the month, okay? Good insulation, windows closed, tight, build tight, ventilate right, all that stuff, okay? And this is after doing this kind of thing, okay? So what we've got here is a typical Australian house leaks at about 15 air changes. We've tightened it. So at 15 air changes, you need about 20 kilowatts of heating. If you tighten it down to 3, then you drop the heating requirement to about 13 kilowatts. If you add a HRV, a heat recovery ventilation system, you supply exhaust, do heat recovery in the box. By making use of the heat recovery, you drop it down all the way to 9 kilowatts. Okay, that's thermal energy requirement. If you pull that into a spreadsheet, what I'm kind of saying is that if you do that correctly, I've taken away 3/4 of the heating requirement and I've halved the size of the heating system, but I still need a heating system and a cooling system. Okay, and that was winter. If you start looking at summer's a little bit more difficult. Winter is actually in some ways easier to design for. In summer, when you do shading in a place like Sydney, it's very good for the daytime, but it might actually give you a bit of a disbenefit for the night. You might get colder temperatures in the spaces at night. So you might need a tinge of heating just to keep the space comfortable at night. If you got warm and humid days or nights, they're really quite uncomfortable and it's quite difficult to manage without active air conditioning. You need that dehumidification, which an air conditioning system provides. Now, what can you do to try and minimize that? Oh, the usual things, but let me show you something quite interesting that you might find interesting. Here's a house which has got a couple of very large west-facing windows. That's the only place where you can look out from. So the owner doesn't have much choice, but he has to put some windows in there. And what I wanted to show you is the effect of what you can see here, right? It's a summer week, and on the bottom, I've got temperatures plotted. These are outside temperatures in green, and you can see here's a day which is about 34 degrees centigrade. And what it shows on the top is the sunlight, sunshine, or solar energy coming through those western windows, okay? And because you get this sudden burst of sunshine in the afternoon from the western side, you start to get very warm temperatures on the inside, okay? What you feel, not the air temperatures, mean radiant temperature here. So what would you do? Well, I would put some external blinds on the outside. And if I do that, I see that I can get an 8-degree drop without air conditioning. So when I need my air conditioner, it's just a little bit, right? The problem is for these moderate climates, and that's what I sort of wanted to end on. We're getting very close to the 10-15 time frame. What I wanted to say is that
PC, don't worry about the 10-15 minute time frame because we've really got 30 minutes. So keep going because there's people sending questions and comments and they're liking what you're saying. So
okay,
don't feel too restricted to have to rush.
Okay, thank you for that. All right, so so getting back to that, what you can see in the picture here is that that owner has installed an external Venetian blind, in this case, remote control, but you can think about doing manual, manual systems that are cheaper to do. But what that will do is give you options like this, where you drop the radiant temperature in the space so that they become comfortable. Then your heating and cooling systems will just have to take that edge off. In this case, if you're on the eastern side of Sydney, and if you really do it well, you can sort of get away without cooling, but it's very difficult to get away without heating. Okay. Now, I can look at how natural ventilation would work if I was going to use it. For example, I could have some strategy of managing the house by saying, right, I'm going to open my windows. In Australia, we use double hung windows, which we don't really see in Europe and other places. We don't see them in Europe because they actually leak quite a bit. So, it's quite difficult to, we've used double hung windows with double glazing, with weather seals, but they still leak. You can't get a passive house certified window by using one of those. But in Sydney, when you have fairly narrow blocks, That's a very good option. And if you open the window, you get an opening on the top and the bottom, and you can encourage natural ventilation. So here's a picture here where I've got a big sliding door facing the garden, very much a Sydney sort of design. And I've got that opened up by about a third. And you can see that on that hour, when there's a reasonable wind speed, you can see how the natural ventilation is working. So you're getting air coming from there, air coming from here, leaving from that side. On another hour, when I'm looking at it, this is a kind of slightly weird hour, because what I'm seeing is that the air is coming in from the high windows and leaving from the lower windows. And that's really because of the wind direction, right? Now, if you combine this sort of natural ventilation with all the other strategies we talked about, it can work really well. But the problem we have is that, we have what I would call a somewhat wicked climate. You have a heating season and you have a cooling season. You can't, if it's just heating, like if you're in a really colder climate, you just have to manage with a heating system. If you were just in a warm climate, you could manage with just a cooling system. But moderate climates, I call them wicked climates, you need to do both. And passive systems are not sufficient, particularly when you look at what the heating requirements are. You need some system. And if you want to lower the energy use and keep the house comfortable, you need to actively manage it. And not many people in busy lifestyles will go around opening and closing windows and doing all these things. They'd rather press the air conditioning button or the heating button, which is why I say that we have a fairly wicked sort of climate. And the last thing I'll say, which I haven't written down here, is that the rating systems we are using, particularly in Australia at this point, we don't look at comfort as one of the stats for saying what's a good design or not. And maybe we should be thinking about that, so that the radiant temperature, what you feel in the space, should be close to whatever the air temperature is. And then you know your design works really well. I'm going to leave it at that. And any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Thanks very much, PC. Yes, Rav De Silva seems to have quite a few questions here. So does the design value allow for thermal bridging, or is it product insulation value? Example, 2.5 bats.
Rav is getting into all the technical detail. Look, when we put the R values in, we consider thermal bridging as part of the action. So we would have done calculation on the construction and worked out what is the equivalent R value, and that's what I'd be putting in. The 25.5 bat is just the product for the insulation. We're looking at the whole construction and saying what the numbers should be. Okay.
Okay, another Q&A. So love the ability to do air tightness assessments.
No worries.
And assuming we prefer to have a reverse cycle AC, is there a minimum ACH we should be targeting to reduce our energy bills? Is 14 ACH that much better than 10 ACH?
Hey, Rav, you need to hire me. Now, that's a very nice question indeed. I think what we figured out is that there is a sweet spot between the heating energy and the cooling energy requirement, right? And it's a little different for different climates. So if you're on the Sydney eastern side, or if you're on the western side of Sydney, that sweet spot sort of moves. If you're in Melbourne, that sweet spot sort of moves. And, I would be saying that you're probably looking at something around the 5 air changes plus to kind of between 3 and 7 is probably a good target to look at. But we haven't done, a whole lot of projects, as you know. It's only been in the last couple of years that people have started to talk a lot about air tightness. We've done a few buildings. We've done a bit of research. We worked with trying to figure out where things are at. But what we were kind of keen to understand was can we bring down the capacity, the size of the air conditioning system to a point where you might be able to do some cost-effective trade-off between a HRV system plus air conditioning system cost. We're still working on that, but yeah, certainly looking at seeing where those things might go to.
That's very cool. So we've got a few comments as well. What a great presentation, very informative. This is fantastic. I didn't realize this technology was currently available to produce such results. Absolutely amazing. So PC, thank you. Is there anything else that you'd like to cover before we move on? Is there anything else that you feel that you wanted to cover that you're concerned you may have missed in your presentation?
No, but if anybody wanted to reach out to me, I had put my email address on the first slide. I'll put that back on.
PC, you can actually type it into the chat, and those on the chat can actually copy it and shoot you an email.
That will be great. I will do that now. And I'm on LinkedIn as well, so please do reach out. Happy to talk to you guys.
It's a fantastic presentation, PC. Like always, very informative. We thank you very much.
No worries at all.
So there it is, everyone. PC's put his email address into the chat, pccthomas@teamcatalyst.com.au. Thank you, PC, very much. And I hope that all the people around Australia and around the world appreciated the presentation by PC and understand exactly what you were talking about, because I guess that not every country around the world has an understanding of what every country does, because there's many different countries ahead in technology and many others that are not so far advanced. So I guess it's really, really informative for people to I guess learn more and more from all over the world.
No worries. Happy International Building Designer Day to everyone.
Thank you, PC.